You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.
Welcome to Volatility Views, the premier program for volatility traders. Each week, we'll take a deep dive into the world of volatility with in-depth analysis, trading activity reviews, strategy breakdowns, cutting-edge education, and much more. We'll also bring you exclusive conversations with the traders, researchers, and asset managers who are reshaping the volatility landscape. If it involves volatility, then you'll find it on Volatility Views. Volatility Views is brought to you by MIAX, one of the fastest options platforms in the world. MIAX is now trading options on the SPIKES Volatility Index, offering pinpoint accuracy, radically faster dissemination, and a highly transparent settlement auction for confident trading, all for competitive exchange fees. It's time to make a change and give yourself an edge with SPIKES. Learn more about SPIKES at www.miaxoptions.com/spikes. Options involve risk and are not suitable for all investors. The statements made are provided for information purposes only and are not intended to provide and should not be relied on for financial or legal advice. And now, it's time to take a deep dive into the world of volatility. It's time for Volatility Views.
All right, everybody, that music means it is time once again for a little program we like to call around these parts Volatility Views, the premier program for volatility traders. My name is Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as, of course, from the ever-exciting Options Insider Radio Network. You guys know how to get at us every Friday, 1 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Eastern. If I sound a little bit different, because I'm still here in the Southern studio, a different Southern studio. We've moved locations since our last program, so moving all over the fine Southern United States. But hopefully you guys, it all sounds good on your end. And of course, you want to listen live, Mixlr is the place to go. It seems to be working again, so get on in there with your questions, your comments, your snarky remarks for the Rock Lobster, all that fun stuff. We do indeed like to hear from you guys. And joining me on the old program today, I am joined by the aforementioned Rock Lobster, Mr. Andrew G. from the Options Mecca known as Maine. Mr. G, welcome back to the show. How goes the clam thievery in your neck of the woods?
They're still thieving, still digging. They're digging trenches 30, 40, 50 feet long right now. All the little clammies are being consumed.
Isn't there like the Old West, it was horse thieves, you hung them, you strung them out. Right? There must be something in Maine. Clam thievery has to be a similar level of grand thievery crime. So what is the statute? What is the law? What are you allowed to do by law there? Can you string them up?
Well, actually, they actually have leases to clam. This apparently is an ancient clam bed. Been clamming here for hundreds of years. So I am just a small interloper on the long arc of time in this area.
All right, we hope to be joined forthwith by our buddy Mr. John Smolin over there, holding down the MIAX hot seat this week. He's the EVP and head of exchange traded products and strategic relations. Man's got one of the longest business cards in the business, Mr. Rock Lobster. Hopefully we'll get him sorted out and get him on the show. Meanwhile, let's keep on rolling right on into our volatility review.
It's time to break down the latest developments in the volatility trading world. It's time for the Volatility Review.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Vol Review. It's kind of a bit of a on repeat for most of this week, Mr. Rock Lobster. Market's kind of kind of mixed. They're up, they're down, they're sideways today. They're slightly up. We're seeing the Dow up not quite 0.25%, the NASDAQ similar percentage level, and the S&P up about 0.33%. So decent moves, but not exactly lighting the world on fire. We're seeing gold also up, oil taking a bit of a break, slight break, WTI down about 59.25. You know, if you listened to Twifo, we did a little breakdown on all gold and indeed crude. Yes, there's also a bunch of other fun stuff, a lot of equities. Russell Recon going on after the bell today, going to drive a lot of volume, not a lot of volatility, at least it shouldn't if it's done well, but billions of shares will change hands in a fraction of a second, which is always an impressive, just from a market mechanics perspective, is always a fascinating thing. And of course, all this fascination in the space, all these people talking about all things upside in the marketplace means good old VIX Cash and spikes are kind of playing the old, hey, we're just going to be pretty much up a little bit on the day here with, let's see, spikes, or VIX, I should say, coming at showtime, 16, pretty much even, about 16.05. Spikes at a similar level, 15.83 or so. Both of them pretty much up, actually up about exactly the same level. VIX Cash and spikes both up exactly 1.35 from where they were this time last show. So all that nice, juicy G20 premium still holding on there in the marketplace out there. So interesting stuff abounding out there. We've got, there we go. We've got, speaking of things that we've got, I think we've got John. So Andrew, why don't you dive into your volatility review as catching your eye while I go out and wrangle John, sir?
Are you going to do some John wrangling?
I will do some wrangling. That's what you get when I sit in the big chair. You got to do the wrangling.
Okay, so basically, what do we have for vol? It is a story that we have been talking about all week. Is the market is stuck? It is waiting for the G20. Let's see how much VIX has moved this week. So if you close your eyes and said, okay, how much is VIX moving this week? VIX is, oh my word, we had a low of, it's hard to believe, but it must have been that settlement day last week. Surprise, surprise. We had a low of 13.19 into the settlement on the 20th, which was VIX settlement. Has not sniffed that level in 6 or 7 trading days, at least. What is that? 8 trading days. So high for VIX Cash was 16.29, but the range is literally about 30 cents.
Is not available. Record your message at the tone when you are finished.
Clearly, John, there we go. It's not available. So continue on with your thoughts, sir, while I go forth and do more wrangling.
So I like the dusky voice in the background.
It is very sultry for the MyAx
yes,
voicemail.
I know. He is not available. So we're not getting any VIX because everybody's waiting for the market to move. We have an ultra flat term structure, but we still have a contango term structure. So what normally is that it is possible that the market is saying, so the vol market's saying, we have a move this weekend. We don't know what's going to happen. We're still pricing vol higher in the future because we have confusion. So that's what we're waiting for. And until this G20 thing gets over and Trump and Z, they, play quarters or something like that, or, they go to a bar and just, hash it out. Don't know what's going to happen. But anyway, so vol is locked up, and golly jeepers, I hope they do something, because it's getting boring watching the market go nowhere for an entire week. But that's what we have. And really, from a vol point of view, since June, I'm going to say, like June 5th, I don't think we have had, besides that one day when expiration, we kind of had that dip down into the 13 handle. And I just think that was just a quick mark. And then everybody realized, oh my gosh, this G20 is back on. And that's where we are. And we're right back up again. So, and that was also, by the way, when we're going to cut, but we're not going to cut kind of rate thing. So we have not gotten anything. We haven't gotten anything what I would call, what I would say super positive, or the confusion and the uncertainty is less. We still have that, what I would say, there's like that little bit of more uncertainty when the market does not like that going forward. And that's where we are. And that's where VIX is. We have a flat curve. I got a couple of trades on, full disclosure, just like waiting for the vol to move, but it ain't going to move this weekend. Hopefully it moves sometime next week or in August. And that's what I'm waiting for from a vol point of view. It's just, when there's nothing to do in the vol space, there's nothing to do. So I'll just cash as a position. So I'll sit and look at it. And, but I do have a few things on, nothing huge, but that's it. That's what I got.
Nothing huge. You're busy. You're ready to head out there and get those clammers as soon as we're done here with the show. Bringing out the old shotgun for some old school Maine justice.
The only way those clammers are leaving is when the tide rolls in and floats their boat away. So,
you should be able to put a monetary value on how, what's the weight of clams, the dollar per pound, whatever it goes for. And just go out there, hand them a bill. So here you go. Thanks. Here's my invoice for the clams you just stole from me. $78,000. These are very rare Giovinazzi clams. I don't know if you know that. What is the volatility of clam pricing? I don't know.
When they seed every year, every couple of years they'll just throw in, a million little baby clammies and see what happens. So then they grow. All I know, we got very clean mud. Those clams do their job.
We need to investigate the volatility of clam prices for our audience here, so we could work them into the rotation. That you could be the world's foremost expert on clam volatility, sir. There you go. I'm just tossing that out there for you. A lot of people talking VIX, not pretty much anybody that I've ever heard of talking clam volatility. So you could have it all to yourself.
A pound of steamers is $5 in Maine, $5 or $6.
And is that a very volatile price? Does it go? Is it $2 one day? Is it $7 the next? I mean, what are we looking at?
In the wintertime prices go up because obviously there's a lot less clam beds, or even they kind of go away totally. But it does go up in the wintertime. But in the summertime, there's clams. There are clams everywhere. Steamers and little necks are everywhere. So it's certainly a good time if you like that sort of thing. Put your summertime clam hat on and come on over to Maine and have a grand old time.
Andrew guarantees you at least 5 pounds of clams if you go dig in his bay right now. I mentioned last week, our buddy Mr. Rhodes out there, unfortunately dealing with some sad events in his family. Hopefully things are going well with them, but he's still nice guy that he is. He still took the time, Mr. Rock Lobster, to send in some nuggets for today's show, even though he's dealing with all those family issues. He sent in a nugget. Said the first half VIX average will be around 1582 at the end of today. This is lower than the 2018 average of almost 16.9. Second half average 20. So let me break that down for you. The first half is lower than the second half 2018 average of 16.96. His nomenclature is a little obtuse. Let me parse it for the folks out there. Since 1990, the SPX has never had a down second half when the first half VIX average is lower than the previous 6 months and below 16. The average SPX up 8.6% for those 6 observations. So he looks back here over 29 years. And so the first half of the VIX, if it's below 16, second half, the VIX SPX was lower. There was 6 years where the VIX was lower than 16 average for the first half. SPX second half, was it lower? The percentage was 0. So there you go. A little bit of a weird. That's what you get when you spend your life in the VIX data, sir.
Now I like that one. So does that mean now, if I read that we have a good shot of rallying in the second quarter?
That seems that way to me.
Because I'm thinking we actually, guys in our, what do you call it? My pit crazies, right? We're like, okay, we were trying to handicap this. I'm like, if Xi and Trump actually come up with something, where's the opening print in SPX? We were thinking 3,000, like we get there on a rocket ship. So I gotta go with Dr. VIX on this one. I think it's certainly possible. I think there's a lot of pent up demand. We keep making the same old high since September, right? September of last year. So what the heck? We've had all the vol and the worry now. But I wonder if you put that in when they had those high VIX when we had market's at this high too. So I don't know. I think we're still in a unique situation. I would say unique.
That's why we call him the soon-to-be Dr. VIX, right? Because he's got those obscure nuggets of data that you never knew you needed until you heard them, and now you know that you need them. Hopefully, we'll get Dr. VIX one of these days back here on the old program. And again, our thoughts and condolences out there with him and his family out there in the volatility. Speaking talking vol and VIX Cash, Mr. Rock Lobster. Let's talk the volatility of some volatility. What say you, sir?
Let's talk some. What the heck?
Yeah, that old VVIX, it's been remaining stubbornly steadfast. And we told you last week, when it starts threatening, it got down to about 81 last week. When it starts threatening, breaking into the 70 handles, that's when it's pretty much, it's watch out below. It's watch out in the vol space. Something is afoot. Something's going to happen. It can, but it doesn't usually hang out in the 70 range for very long. Once it gets down there, it seems like things are percolating, things are brewing, things are shaping up for a bit of a move, a bit of an increase of volatility, at least a return of some volatility of volatility. And that's pretty much what we saw this week, up to about an 87, up 6 handles from our last show. Still not quite explosive. It's not 100 or 110 or 120, anything like that, but still a little bit richer, a little bit firmer, reflecting what we kind of were just talking about before, that annoying flatness of the futures curve. In fact, talking about flat, coming into Showtime, of course, we're seeing those contracts going away pretty soon, but coming into Showtime, of course, the cash and the July future, that front contract now, were pretty much lockstep. They were both at about exactly 16 even, so there really was no premium for that contract that will be ebbing away not too long from now. And then, of course, the AUG contract at about a 16.90, so about a roughly 0.9 premium for 2 months out versus the cash. But the rest of it, like we've been saying before, remains stubbornly flat. Of course, with the events this weekend, we wouldn't expect to see a big change in that until we hear the outcome of those meetings. So right now, the cash is at about a 16. That front future at about a 16.06. You go out to AUG at 16.90. And you go all the way out to DEES, it's at a 17. So a tenth of a point premium to go from AUG to DEES on this chart, listeners. And then it goes all the way back up to about 17.60 if you get out to March of 2020. We have some questions about how that term structure will change if certain events play out, I believe, in a little bit, but we'll keep that for now. So yeah, Mr. Rock Lobster, I'm sure you've been covering this in your newsletter, and all people in the vol space should be subscribed to the Rock Lobster's newsletter. It's called Umbrage. Is that correct, sir?
So they want me to rename my letter? Oh yes,
the Umbrage newsletter.
The name of my letter is no, I get it. Yes, it is the Umbrage letter.
There you go. Subscribe to the Umbrage letter at your outlet of choice. No, it is Andrew's volatility newsletter. You can find it over there, optionpit.com. $700 a day gets you all of his insights and his pearls of wisdom and his nuggets. It's worth it, I think you'll agree. Every penny, if not more, over there. Optionpit.com is the place to go. But yeah, we're still pretty much flat, and I'm guessing you get the feeling, Mr. Rock Lobster, we're probably going to be flat until we see some sort of movement on the macro front that shows us, hey, trade war up or down. But right now the market's saying, we're kind of flipping a coin, and it's kind of hard to blame them, is it not?
It is. I mean, it's literally this is coin toss pricing for VIX. I'm totally convinced of it. Of course, it's just my opinion. I could be totally wrong, but I think that's what it's giving us. You have SPX doesn't move more than 20 handles in a week, and this is the market waiting. And you've been you sat in the Intel pit, right, watching the summer go by, like, when is something going to move? And
there were many times when I said, "Oh my God, why?" There were many times when I said, "Oh my God, why didn't I hit every bid in late May and just get the hell out of Dodge for a few months
and go on a vacation with my lovely wife?"
Yes. Or even back then when I wasn't married, just get the hell out of Dodge anyway, because there was a heck of a lot going on. And then the last few summers, we've seen a little bit happening, and the start to this summer certainly was tumultuous, and it certainly can be again if we see some more. I mean, what did Trump threaten? An additional billion or so in tariffs coming out if there's another wave of tariffs, if he doesn't get what he likes this weekend. So there certainly could be more vol injected into the marketplace. All it takes is one tweet. We've seen it before, listeners, and this curve could start moving. The vol could start moving. These lofty equity valuations could start coming in. Now, of course, we have the formerly Bernanke, then briefly Trump, now Powell put embedded there in the marketplace with, of course, the impending rate cut, giving us a nice little boost But still, there could be a lot of inflation. It could be a lot of volatility injected into the marketplace here if Trump doesn't see what he likes this weekend. Going on over to what's trading here this week. Let's start in the land of spikes. Like I said, spikes has about a 1585 coming into showtime. Last week was a rare scenario where spikes actually had a bit of a premium to VIX, usually it's actually, I should say, VIX had a little bit of a premium to spikes, and we're seeing that again this week, which is kind of weird. Usually it's the other way around. Spikes has a bit of a premium to VIX, 1585 right now or so for the spikes, at about a 16 even or close to it for the VIX Cash. And looking here at the big OI, still dominating the tape out here in Spikes land. That big 1x2 went up a couple weeks ago. The AUG 2618, 10,000 by 5,000 contracts. That's a pretty sizable print, and they're looking to work to do some more. Nothing else of that similar size has gone up. See some 50 lots, other things going on. The OI still pretty much around the same level it was this time last week. It's like some small nuggets went up, but they're still looking. I know they're working behind the scenes. In fact, I think that's why John is not here. That's why his phone wasn't picking up. He's off. I heard he's off to the airport to chase down some more institutional clients there for all things spikes. So when they're not here, listeners, that means they're off there shaking the tree to get some more big prints for you guys out there in Spikes. I believe I have a listener question about that a little bit later, too, so we'll get to all that as well. But Spikes wasn't the only one not lighting up the tape here this week, because VIX itself has been kind of anemic this past week. In fact, not too long ago, about a month ago on the show, we were talking about VIX options ADV looking pretty robust heading into summer, at or around a 700,000, which is very strong. And then coming into this week in this show, it's come off quite a bit, about 300,000. It's at about a 411,000 right now, ADV, so very light. That's more of a, I should say, seasonally appropriate type of level, because usually June into July is not exactly a hot volatility time for the marketplace. But, you know, we've seen a lot of macro things going on right now, including this weekend, so that should be driving a little bit more paper than it is. Today was a very light day, just a tick over 100,000 contracts on the tape as of the start of the show, so not a lot going on out there at all today. Let's look here at what the top positions are out here in VIX land. People are actually trading what's on for size. Some may call it the hot VIX strikes out here. Let's see what's going on out here. Number 10 in our top 10 here, the July 16 puts, 118,000 open there. Number 9, the July 14 puts. Seen a bit of a trend here at the bottom part here, 122,000. By the way, 118 usually is not enough to even get you into the top 10, but this week, kind of light, so not a lot to bump it down. The July 30s, our old friend, the 30 strike, still up there, 125,000 on the tape, taking the number 8 spot this week. Number 7, the July 22 is $1.31. Number 6, the July 25 is $1.35. Numero cinque here. The July 26 is nice little call strip there, 142,000 open there. Also 142,000 open of the July 15 puts, so they're kind of tussling for the number 4 spot, as a bit of a tie there. Number 3, the aforementioned last week, at least, and multiple weeks now, the 37 half strike. People love that now as well. It's the AUG this time that's on the top of the list. 145,000 open there for number 3. Number 2, July 24 is $1.56, and number 1 holding down the hot seat this week, the July 20 calls, $1.82 on the tape here. That's again not enough to usually even break you into the top 5, let alone the top 10, if it's a regular active period where there's, 7, 8, 9 to even 10 million contracts open. Right now, we're shy of all of that, about 6.3 million contracts. Total OI out there in VIX land, about 4.9 on the calls and about 1.4 million on the puts. Anything catching your eye out here this week, Mr. Rocklops? I know you can mention it's kind of like a paint drying week, but any trends or trades catching your eye out here in VIX options land that you wanted to share with our audience, sir?
Well, a couple of things. One is, that just this weekly paper is kind of scattered overall. I spent a little bit of time on the bid today trying to buy options. It took me 2.5 hours to buy calls sitting on the bid for VIX. So that's one. So as you said in the old days, no liquidity provider was lifting a electronic finger to hit any bid in VIX today. So again, part of the strategy, I buy the calls first, and then I try to go buy the puts. So I did get filled, and then I went and did the put side. So the second part is I find it odd. So there's a bid down to the July 12 puts. So the thing is we have kind of that low VVIX. It's now pulling somewhere between July, but you've got 100 vol. You've got the 17 strike. There's $3 of juice in the July 17 strike total. $3. It's a $3 straddle. So there's $2 of extra juice in it. You see that and you're like, okay, they're pricing $3. That's a 14 VIX for July, or it's a 23 VIX. So you look at that and you go, they're looking for a move. Like if the trade thing does come out, they're looking for this like relief in vol we really haven't got for a while. So if you're a vol buyer and you think this is all crap and the market's going to crash, I think there's the potential that if anything is even, I would say, remotely good status quo, kick the can, anything that gives some relief, there is a bid for the downside. That's all I'm saying. There is some open interest down there. The July 14 puts, July expiring July ordinary, there's 122,000 there. The 15 puts 142,000, like you said. That's a big, what I would call kind of inflecting number if we kind of break through that. And they just let the SPX straddle fall. Could happen. We haven't seen a real 13 handle and stay there in quite a while in the cycle. And it feels like the market it's putting that downside in. The VIX almost always puts the upside in, but now I think there is enough volume out down there that some people are trying to grab themselves some puts. And I have to say, there's a reasonable shot at all that stuff. So we can get down there, but we need some of those dominoes to fall over. The dominoes, the macro dominoes. Something has to kind of fall over a little bit. So, but that's what I would say from a volume point of view that way. Those are what I would say is the more telling type of indicators, at least in VIX land, just the way I'm watching the volume today. They're not letting the bid for this July go, so they're still expecting to move.
Yeah, hard to argue with them when they got some literal weekend risk going on this weekend. I'm not sure if you heard, Mr. Rocklauser, but there's some stuff cooking this weekend, which may perhaps impact the marketplace. Let's see, again, kind of a light day, kind of a light week. Let's see if we can find any nuggets of interest. The biggest trade going up today out there in VIX land right now are the July end of month, the 31st calls going up 12,661 times. A little bit off the base. Actually, these were surprisingly wide. These were 45 cents at 79. That's a funky market for VIX. VIX is usually pretty tight. This is going out to July. These aren't that far out. And they are in the weekly, so they're kind of off cycle. So I get it, but still, funky market, I should say, and went up about 60 cents. Looks like they're probably trying to harvest a bit of the old risk premium there and doing it opening, and as well as some weird verticals today. The July 28, Aug 23, they're going up 4,000 times exactly mid-market. So it's your best guess whether it's a roll or whether it's something new. That's a weird new positioning. If it is, I'm going to lean roll, even though it's weird timing for a roll. I was also followed shortly thereafter by the July 27, Aug 24, also going up 3,000 times. So 4,000 and then 3,000 of those. So weird verticals, weird time verticals / diagonals, kind of the order of the day as well. Yesterday, Mr. Rocklauser was talking about puts. Puts were the order of the day. Yesterday, someone looks like rolling the 14 half puts out about a month from July to Aug, doing it for looks like about 14 cents, 16,500 times. So keeping that downside level alive for another month. Looks like someone taking the other side of that trade as well, going to the upside, this time out in October, putting on AUK 1732 half vertical, 15,000 times, Mr. Rock Lobster. This is opening, and it appears to be buying. You like that one? 1732 half. They did it for roughly $2, about a buck 202 looks like here. You like this one? This one blowing your skirt up, sir?
17.
I knew that would bring a smile to your face.
You look at that stuff and you go, well, That's a tough one there. Maybe just a roll. I'm not sure. Wasn't there like the 1/3? I could have sworn we talked about this last week. There was a.
Well, we always talk about some weird ratio. This week it's all 1-to-1. It's kind of unusual. Yeah.
I wonder if they're rolling. I mean, it almost looks like they're trying to sell that spread the way it was priced, and like just taking a more aggressive line. Like, screw it, I'm going to sell the 2. And the other thing too is, I know the way it looked like selling to me, but maybe I could be wrong. That 48, it's, and maybe on that side, like, so you're waiting a long time. If you sell a call spread in VIX, you are waiting until Methuselah comes walking through your front door sometimes to collect the dollars, unless of course we get just a huge vol of destruction. But even that, I don't even think the term structure. I mean, you're selling October, you're selling the October future. I mean, the whole front end of the curve could collapse in October, but only drop like 30 cents.
Exactly. That's why. Either way, I'm not really a huge fan. That's why I thought it'd be fun for you. You're right. It looks like pricing wise, looks like it probably was a sale, but I'm not overly enthused on that leg either. I can't say I love buying it either, because that's just, what are you doing with that 32 half strike if you're buying it? Why are you selling that? There's a lot of other ways you could go about it. I'd much rather have, if you're going to do that, I'd much rather a shorter term upside call you're selling, maybe a little bit closer, and then keep rolling it every month. Yeah, I'd much rather do that than this. And it's 1-to-1. I don't know what to do with myself, all these 1-to-1 spreads. I'm not used to non-funky 1/8 ratio spreads. That's what we talk about every week here. 1-to-1, it just seems, here we go. Wednesday had a 1/2 put spread. So we're not to be left hanging this week, Mr. Rock Lobster. On Wednesday, there was a July 15-14, so a one-handle put spread, up 1/2, 7,500 by 15,000 times. Looks like they did it. Let's see here. They were actually 55 cents at 60. They went up 56 cents for the put. So it looks like they probably sold this spread. Sell 1, buy 2. But again, these executions, these markets are pretty tight. So there's little room to wiggle here on these. Looks like they did it. If they did indeed sell it, they did it for 8 cents, which is interesting. So they're wanting themselves a little bit. We always talk the call ratio, sell 1, buy 2. The put one doesn't get as much love. But it is interesting. And if we get, the old G2 implosion or G20 implosion this guy's probably wagering on, I guess this isn't the worst trade I've seen. You like this one better? I'm guessing you like this one better than selling the other vertical, Mr. Rock Lobster.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately this is a bet on 13 low for VIX. Usually how they price these things, where I'm guessing this is a hard one because everything's kind of trading low. Mostly from the customer side, they buy 1, sell 2. I can't imagine buying 2, selling 1, because, like, where does VIX have to go for you to make any money? you got to print below 13. I mean, you have to print 13 to make any money on this trade. So from the customer side, I could see buy 1, sell 2, and they're trying to free ride it, looking for the high 13s or low 14s. And this is one of those annoying VIX trades, by the way. If you put on, you are waiting to Tuesday of expiration, and even then, there is so much juice in these 1/2s. You'll be like, when am I getting my money? They almost make you, strangle you, hold you.
When am I getting paid?
Cycle.
When am I getting paid? When's the cash register ringing? Yeah, for my 1/2.
They really they do. Mark trades. We trade these things, and like his usually is like, I'm in for a dime credit, out for a dime credit, something like that, where it's kind of you're waiting for the little bulge in the futures and you just exit the trade. But if you put it on for even, man, you're waiting for your dollars. And it's not like trading options, you're working really hard, but this you got to wait, and then you got to go, I got to hold it over I got to hold it through the print, and you could print 13 and you could print 12.75 on a screw job on the print, and now you're out 25 cents, and you're like, so you held the whole thing, almost had a winner, and you end up getting hosed on the print anyway. So
I can see the logic here. I mean, people they see the 1/2s go up on the call side all the time, right? Say, why don't we do that on the put side? And the call, I think the call trade, even though I malign a lot of the ones that go up that are 1/8 and super crazy wide, because that's just dumb. But people do it on the put side, they don't realize you're right. It's a much more nuanced proposition. You have to really be in there babysitting this bad boy. You need a very specific scenario to unfold. You need to be quick on the trigger. for that to get that one off. The call, I think the call trade is a little bit easier to pull off, in my opinion. And that's probably why we don't see these. Of course, also, just literally there's more room to run on the upside, right, than there is on the downside in VIX land, particularly when we're at these levels. So, yeah, that's why probably we don't see it as much. I think a little bit more of a nuanced trade. Looks like the way it's priced, it looks like it probably was a sale, which is, again, that's a challenging road to hoe. I've seen worse trades, certainly. But you're right. That's a dip. If you sell one, buy two.
It could pay, and I might be a little, but it's.
You've been bitter. You've been burned in the past.
You got to be careful of those, those expiration graphs. What you see, and trying to, that's what I'm going to get out of it. I'm going to get what that expiration graph, says.
But Andrew, if it goes out at 14, those puts go out at 0, right? And that's what's wrong with that?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but the problem is you're not going to get. They're not going to be 0 on expiration on Tuesday. They're going to be like 35 or 40 cents, maybe. It depends. Depends how woolly everybody thinks the print's going to be. So, like, man, I'm still waiting. So but you can get, like I said, if you're good with getting 15 or 20 cents, it's still okay to that type of trade. But you're not getting the whole banana unless you hold it through the cycle. That's the only way you get that one.
Maybe like this one a little bit better. Going out to Tuesday, we had a 20,000 lot of the July 28 calls by themselves, just for about 17 cents. Looks like maybe paper maybe buying those. It's hard to tell. So much OI on these strikes, so definitely not closing. And then also a July 28 AUG 24. Another one of these funky diagonals, Mr. Rock Lobster, going up 10,000 times on Monday for 50 cents. Again, looks like exactly where are we? Yeah, exactly mid-market. So it's your pick your poison how you want that one to go up. If you're rolling July, you're doing it at an interesting time. So it looks like, and again, both strikes have a decent enough size on them, so there's not opening on either strike. So it's hard to tell off the gate if it is a roll or not. But funky diagonals, maybe the order of the day this week, Mr. Rock Lobster. So let's keep on rolling to VXX. Maybe we can find something to sink our teeth into more here in VXX, because there wasn't a lot of paper outside of these kind of aberrant trades out here in VIX land this week. VXX coming into showtime right around a 26 even, so it puts it not quite 2 handles, about 1 and handles and chain, 1.7 handles or so lower than it was on our last show. Decent actually volume today, about 112,000 contracts on the tape. The ADV is about 182, so unlike VIX, it's actually doing some decent paper out there. Let's see what our top 10 positions are out here in VXX land really quickly. Number 10 here, we got the June 41s, 22,000. Number 9, the SEP 19 puts, 22,000 of those as well. Number 8, the June 38s, 23,000. Numero 7 there, numero sette belle, as we like to say in Italian there. The June 40s, 24,000. Number 6, the July 32s, 25,000 of those. Number 5, Jan 14 puts going out a little bit for some downside, 29,000 of those bad boys. Number 4, the July 23 puts for 31,000. Number 3, July 42s, 32,000. Number 2, July 35s, 38,000. Number 1, the July 24 puts. A lot of that June obviously came off the board listeners. A lot of the June was where the puts were. So a lot of calls here on the top 10. We got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 60% of the top 10, Mr. Rock Lobster, on the call side of the ledger, which is kind of in keeping with what we've seen out there in VXX of late. A lot of call action. Total of about 1.3 million contracts outstanding, about 700,000 on the calls, and about 600,000 on the puts. So calls leading the dance out there as well. The big trade out here today, 4,700 lot of the July 24 half puts going up for 73 cents on the bid. They were kind of weirdly tight, though. They were a penny bid, so maybe penny wide. Maybe there was a funky quote in the book there that they took advantage of, but looks like, at least on the surface, they hit the bid there for 70. This is opening as well, so it wasn't. Usually you see downside love. This time, seeing maybe a little bit of put sales out there. Also, July weekly put spread, the July expiring on the 5th, so out there next week. We've got the July, 25 half, 23 half, so a 2-handle put spread going up about 2,200 times for 60 cents. Paper really liking it, going through the offer for the calls and below the bid through the offer for the 25 half puts and through the bid for the 23 half puts. So pretty wide, getting that one done for 60 cents. A funky vertical on Thursday out there as well. It was a July 29 half 31 vertical going up 4,000 by 6,000. Actually, there's another leg to it. There's also a 3-leg was July 34 is in there as well for 2,800. Let's just forget that. That was a weird one. So all sorts of weird ratios out there, Mr. Rock Lobster. But anything in general catching your eye in VXX land? Any of your crazies out there slinging any? I mean, you got a little bit of juice coming out of there this week. Are they still on the erosion tip, or are they kind of keeping their powder dry, waiting for this curve to do something again?
I think, almost everybody's kind of, they are looking for, at least my pit guys, looking for some kind of move in vol, but not till, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So everything is, there's all kinds of clever ways to, play that potential vol bounce. I find these trades a little bit interesting in the fact that, somebody selling the 4.5 puts, relatively, so that 4.5 puts, it's kind of an aggressive sale unless you think this G20 thing is nothing. I don't really think anything's going to happen. I think it'll be status quo and then just the ball gets smashed. I doubt if anything great will happen, although the market loves any kind of news snippet it can find. The July 5 25.5 puts for 67.5 cents. So I think the theoretical low for VXX for me is like 22.5 by the end of the week. So that means they would just absolutely have to annihilate VIX like down to 12. Just crush everything in its path and let the summer happen. So that I think is the absolute low. But, like a 25 is definitely in touch without too big of a problem. 24 isn't really easily in touch. So you don't need much. When the future's at 16, and they're like 50-50, and it's easy for things to drop a little bit. So you've got right now, this is a cool thing, you've got an awful lot of July in VXX. About half the value of the product is July. So, if they slam that front end of the curve hard, meaning VIX Cash drops, because everybody's like, oh, everything's cool. They crush that thing. Half the value of VXX is all in those futures, the July contract, and then it just annihilates the value of the product. So it can move quite substantially if they hit the front end. So, and that's right. So either they're going to hit the front end, we'll make some money, or they don't hit the front end, and I give up a few days of decay and I go home and and I'm grumpy just for small dollars, but not really big dollars. So
you're always grumpy. People are always stealing your clams, so you're always grumpy about something over there, whether it's your lack of decay in VXX or whether it's the clam thievery going on outside your front door. The main problems you have to deal with, sir. We don't have a lot of clam thievery in downtown Chicago, or either here in the Southern Studio as well. I think. I can't speak for certain down here, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say not a lot of clam thievery within the immediate vicinity here of the Southern Studio. Nobody got a hit on Mr. Rock Lobster. We don't always touch on the show, but it's been the story of the week. It's been the volatility tale of the week. Yes, I'm talking good old Bitcoin, BTC, the futures, call it what you will out there. Look, whatever product you look at out here on the Bitcoin side, they've all been moving, rocking, and rolling. We, of course, saw a lot of interesting developments out there. Hopefully, check out our Crypto Rundown show to hear more. But we talked about it yesterday on Twitter. You can't get enough of it. It's been going crazy here this week. Of course, just a few months ago, the thing was threatening the 3,000 handle to the downside. And then we saw that reverse, get up to 5,000 and 6,000, then 7,000, 8,000, and 9,000, then break through 10,000 not too long ago, then rally all the way up to 11, and now threatening almost 14,000, 13,915 was the high for the CME futures. That was this Wednesday, June 26th. We saw some crazy news also this week as well. Coinbase having an outage on Wednesday. Website and the API both down. That got a lot of people spooked. We saw Bitcoin take a hit of about 1,700 just over the course of about 15 minutes or so. We saw a similar annihilation going on yesterday off roughly 3,000 handles at one point there. Coming into the end of the day, it was shy of the 11,000 handle yesterday, about 10,800. Coming into showtime here, we are back up almost 1,000 points today on the futures. So they were at about 10,800 or so yesterday at the end of that massive 3,000 point annihilation. Today, up about 1,000 points, almost 900 and change on that. Well, the front contract, the June contract, was seeing up 900. The July contract up over 1,000. So huge swings out there. A decent volume as well. Not as huge. Yesterday was about 28,000 in the futures, which of course is a 5X coin listener, so that's over 100,000 coins. Today, about 8,000 as of halfway through the show here, so 3/4 of the way through the show. And a lot of that volume coming in July because June's coming off the board fairly soon. In fact, speaking of vol, Mr. Rocklaps, I'm not sure if you got the memo there, but our friend Mr. Simon, who typically is coming on here to talk about all things spikes. In fact, you may remember he was on here a few weeks ago, infamously, when he carped me on the crystal ball market and proceeded to get himself a very negligible victory through underhanded and shady methods, which is why he's not on again. But they also work on other things, and they use that spikes methodology to calculate some interesting other volatility indices, including their BitVol. They've been working on it for a while. It's pretty much now live. You can check it out over there in T3 land. I think it's live to the public. I know I have a special link for the special cool kids to check it out behind the scenes, but I think it's live for you guys and the public as well. And coming into showtime today, as you might expect, it's at an all-time high. This data going back here to, let's see, this goes back several years here on this chart. I don't know exactly how far back it goes, but as far back as they've been calculating, and they have this back test of this BitVol index to go. This is the highest it's been. It was at a 135.71 coming into showtime, up about 14.5%. So that puts it well above the other most recent high. Looks like here, it's hard to read on this chart, but looks like around a 120 or so in that range. Otherwise, it's been pretty much shy of 100 for most of its life, this BitVol index. If you're wondering what BitVol measures, it measures the expected 30-day implied vol coming off. Remember, there are no listed options on the CME futures, but there are listed, or I should say OTC options on Bitcoin. In fact, our friends over there at Kuna, who were our partners there in the early days of the crypto rundown, they put up a lot of that stuff, and that's who Simon and the T3 folks are working with. No, go figure, they'd partner with an Aussie firm to get that stuff out there. But they have the skews, they have the implied vols and everything else for what's actually trading OTC in the Bitcoin options realm, and they're using it actually to crunch some interesting numbers. So if you want yourself a bit of a Bitcoin VIX, Simon and the folks over there at T3, they actually got it for you. And right now it's at about a 135, and that's an all-time high for this index. I encourage you to check it out. T3index.com, I believe, is the place. Yes, T3index.com. Search for the vol, and then let me see if I can hear it. Now I can see the previous high coming into today. Looks like it was at about a not even 120, 117.82. That was back in May of this year, so about a month and a couple of weeks from now here, about a month and a week or so. And looking at 117.82, kind of hard to get all the legend up on this chart, but yeah, about 117. And previous to that, it was well below. It was down in 60s not too long ago. Back May 10th, it was 69. So it's been well shy of 100 most of its life, with a couple of brief flirtations. Jan 2019, you might imagine, and Dece 2018, with 2 times that it hit 100 before. Other than that, and we talked about this on the show as well, realized vol in Bitcoin has been a lot of late, but there are periods when it gets very low. And right now is not one of those periods. And moving a couple of thousand handles a day, it's a lot going on. Any of your crazy? I talked to that one crypto guy you had at your event, Mr. Rocklaus. Any of your crazies in the pitch chat, are they getting down with a little bit of the crypto vol?
Well, I mean, can you think of a more winner of a product to trade than just the vol, the BitVol future? They got to list that they got to list that now.
They need to list it like on Monday, yeah.
Like list the damn thing. List you got the cash, you got a BitVol cash. List the future now. This is. I mean, the thing too is because Bitcoin is so expensive, right? What is it? It's hard to know because it's 9,000 today and 12,000 yesterday and whatever.
Pick a moment, it's moved 1,000. It's at about 12,000 right now on the CME.
I mean, you get some good movement here. You're getting the 50 handle up to 160, 170, back down to 130. Dude, that is the sweet spot of what people want to trade. You could, you have future leverage 10 to 1. All of a sudden, you're like, you don't even trade the Bitcoin. Just trade the vol on the Bitcoin. That's what makes America great. Just who the hell cares?
That's what makes America great. Bitcoin vol. That's what makes
Just trade the Bitcoin vol.
I love it. Coming into the holiday here. Trade yourself a little bit go in, they just list Bitcoin that bad boy. I'm just checking it out here. Think about that, Mr. Rocklobster. We've gone from shy of 1,000 to up all the way to 20. and then back over the course of yet another year and a half or so, back down to 3,000, and now in the span of a couple of months, back up to about 13,000, all with no real listed options to speak of. You know, there's decent volume, I know, on BitMEX and Deribit. Don't hit me up. I know those exist, but listed, you know, regulated venues that U.S. traders can access without a VPN, there really aren't any. All right, let's keep on rolling then before the party gets even hotter. Let's get into a little bit of your questions with the volatility voicemail.
It's time to share your thoughts and opinions with your fellow volatility traders. It's time to check the volatility voicemail. Make your voice heard by dialing 779-669-4VOL. Posting a comment on the optionsinsider.com, sending an email to questions@theoptionsinsider.com, or posting your questions to twitter.com/options or facebook.com/theoptionsinsider.
All right, welcome to the Vol voicemail. This time last week, we were asking you guys which one has the highest realized vol. Give you 4 choices: Tesla, Bitcoin, WTI, or Qs. Go figure. The answer is, I think you can probably guess it right now. It's Bitcoin, and it was indeed last week as well. At the time we posted that the realized vol for Bitcoin, this is realized now, not implied. The realized, is at about 75%. Coming into the beginning of the week, it's at about 65%. Much higher now. I don't have the exact numbers right now, but as you saw from the BitVol index, it's pretty high. Tesla's at shy of 50%, about 48%. The Q's are at about 18.3%. WTI was around somewhere between the 40 and 60 range, depending on where you were looking. Either way, it wasn't enough to get it up to the number one spot. And now, since then, of course, Bitcoin has exploded. So all you out there who picked Bitcoin, you are indeed the winners. Let's see. Question here from Litter. Litter wants to know, hey, Vol dudes, love the show. Well, right back at you, Litter. We love you. You just don't do what your handle implies. Don't be out there littering. But other than that, we appreciate your love. And he wants to know, he says, I heard you guys mention SPX combos on the last show. What are they and why are they so popular? Yeah, we talked about that, Mr. Locklobster, last week with the market makers out there in the S. They like to do things tied, and the brokers like to quote things tied in the S. And when you're trading SPX options, you're hedging with S&P futures. Sometimes it's easier just to do a combo, which is a synthetic long or short future, depending on what you need out there. So it's easier sometimes for market makers to get those off because they can just trade them right away in the pip. The brokers tend to like them because it's more commissions for them, obviously, instead of just kicking you over to a futures broker where they get no commissions. They instead get the commission for the options trade you did initially, plus the combo 2-leg trade to hedge it. So they get a nice little boost in their commission. So the brokers love it. Sometimes the clients like it as well. It depends on often how they specify it, but that tends to be the way it goes. Mr. Rocklops, did you trade a lot of combos out there in SPX land, sir?
Yeah, but really, it's like a tied to stock thing. It's pretty much all it is a reference. I don't remember it being anything a whole lot different than that.
Yeah, pretty much what it is. That's the SPX version of a tied trade. You do out in an Intel and Microsoft, they just do it tied to stock straight up. In the SPX, they like to do combos, and the brokers again have a bit of an axe to grind as to why that would be. Here's a quick one for you, Mr. Rock Lobster. Kind of touched on this earlier. Our port key wants to know, if we get a trade war deal out of G20 this weekend, realistically, how much of a hit will VIX take on Monday? We were just talking about this earlier. You're looking at the curve. You think it could be a decent amount if some stuff gets squeezed out of that front portion of that curve, right? So let's say we get a deal, Mr. Rock Lobster. There's photos of them hugging and everyone's happy. Trade war done. What do we get on Monday, sir?
So I'm going to say Trump and Xi slugging a Qingtao, although, I don't think Trump drinks, but maybe he should start. Anyway, like that, I'd say like 1301 VIX. That would be my guess. 1301.
1301. Interesting. So there you go, Mr. Rock, or should say Mrs. We don't know. Our port key. There's no gender in that. Yeah, it looks like we were talking about before. They're not pricing in right now. They're keeping it flat because they don't know. But if we get this deal, I don't know if we'll get that kind of hugging and loving and everyone happy deal. That would be a lot. Then I do agree. I think then we said it.
That's why I had to say I had to go the Qingtao.
Yeah,
Qingtao beer. That Qingtao beer deal would be big.
If they're cracking a beer, yeah, you're right. Then
Yeah.
it's serious business. Oh, what else is serious business, Mr. Rock Lobster? It's the crystal ball.
It's time to peer into the future and reveal what the volatility gods hold in store. It's time to look into the crystal ball.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Crystal Ball. This is the portion of the show where we all attempt to educate and sometimes embarrass ourselves for your information, enjoyment, education, all that fun stuff. It has been an interesting time out here to be prognosticating volatility because, as we just touched on here in the listener questions, there's a lot of uncertainty in the air. We have no idea what's going to happen as of this weekend. They could come out and they could start a shooting war. I think that's a little dramatic, but they won't. But there could be all sorts of crazy. They could say, hey, trade war, double down, more billions of dollars with the tariffs. Or they could, like Mr. Rocklofsky said, they could be drinking a beer and everything's fine and right with the world. So a lot to digest. Remember, I don't know if you called Mr. Rocklofsky, at the beginning of the week on the option block, you inquired to me about my crystal ball prediction, which was at the time 1540. Do you recall off the top of your head exactly where VIX Cash was when you asked me that, sir?
I think I'm going to give you the credit that you were maybe a penny away from where it was trading.
I think it was Monday. Actually exactly. I think was the case. It was exactly at 15. I just want to put that out there again because the bullseyes, when they come, you have to seize them. Seize your moment. Seize the day, Mr. Rocklofsky. And that was a beautiful thing because you were taking umbrage at the time. I remember you were thinking that you were winning, and then I had to bring up the fact that actually no, I was exactly accurate. So I just wanted to bring that up there again to remind you, to remind the listeners. You know, the bullseyes, they come, and they're fun when they do. This time, coming at the end of the week, VIX, the whims of VIX have been a little bit more, certainly more than the Rock Lobster predicted. He was at a 1435 as of this time last week. Our guest, Mr. Thompson, he was actually looking pretty prescient. As of coming into the end of the showtime, we're at right around a 16 even or so in the cash, and he was at a 1591, so he's looking pretty good. He's within not quite a tenth of a handle, 1603, but he's pretty close. I'll give it to him. Within a tenth of a handle, we usually count it as a bullseye. So that's pretty close. And then I was at a 1540 on the downside, 1565 for the upside for spikes. So I'll take my 1540 because that's my VIX prognostication. So I was at about a 6/10 of a point of away. Still a full handle closer than the Rock Lobster. But our friend, Mr. Dynamic Vol, looking pretty good at the end of the week here, Mr. Rock Lobster. So we'll give him a victory. And then now that means since I was in second place, even though I had the literal bullseye earlier in the week, I just want to remind you of that again, Mr. Rock Lobster. So that gives me the.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And I said, by the way, Dynamic Vol is a great Twitter guy to follow.
He is. He's a good one. And every once in a while, he hits VIX pretty well on as well. So give him a follow over there at Dynamic Vol. And the Typhon guys just tweeting. I think they hired some new guys to do some more quantitative work over there as well. So a lot of cool stuff going on over there, which brings us to this next week. I don't even know if we're going to have a show next week, Mr. Rock Lobster, because Thursday, of course, we're off. I'll have to see if everyone wants to get together to do a show on Friday. If so, we'll do one. If not, we can always do a best of. So we could be prognosticating for 2 weeks, but we're going to prognosticate right now for 1 week, which is next week, and then we'll see what happens from there. So this time next week, I was second, so I shall go first because Mr. Thompson's not here to claim his trophy. And again, a lot of uncertainty.
I think you should send him some swag, though.
I should
something
send him
nice,
something.
like a mug.
I'll send him a nice little. How about a nice little Gibson steak from the Southern Studios, all the way from down here in Florida back up to Chicago, when he can just get it himself in walking down the street. But yeah, all that a long way around to saying there's a lot going on this weekend. We really have no idea where the whims of macro trade talks will take us. We said there's a scenario where we could be at a 13 handle very easily. There's another scenario where we could be right about where we are. I don't think we'll be where we are. I think some juice has got to come out of this balloon as of this time next week. We will be coming off the heels of a holiday truncated week, so that could squeeze a little bit out of there as well, but we will have a trading day on Friday, which is all a long way around to saying I'm liking a little bit of juice out of this balloon. I'm not going to say a ton, though. I'm not going to say a ton. I'm going to say 1475 is my prognostication. We'll make it easy. Let's just do one for both spikes and VIX, even though there is usually a bit of a premium to the two. We'll have it for one. Make our lives easier, Mr. Rock Lobster. So there you go. I bought you some time. 1475. What are you feeling this time next week? You feeling the great annihilation? You feeling a little bit of juice? You feeling more? What do you got?
Well, the thing is, if we see like lower than 14, I have a huge home run. So I have to temper my enthusiasm, but I am gonna I am looking for a pretty decent move, into. Anyway, I'll just be quiet and I'll say I'm going to say 13.95 by Friday. I think we make a new low because one way or another, we're all going to know what the deal is and how long and how bad it's going to be. So I say I'm going to go 13.95, and they finally release the air out of the balloon.
Interesting. So not quite a point between us listeners, about a 0.8 of a point here, but he's much wider than his usual bit of carping he likes to do, which is always dangerous. And he goes second. I got to watch out for the rock clouds. He likes to squeeze in sometimes, muscle his way in. So 14.75 for me. Remember, I did have that bullseye earlier this week. Mr. Rock Lobster, not so much. He's at 13.95, and that's unfortunately going to do it for this all over the place this episode. Mr. Rock Lobster talking VIX options, talking spikes, talking Bitcoin vol, talking crabs, and not even crabs, clams, clam thievery, you name it. Clam volatility, all things on the table this week, Mr. Rock Lobster. If I want to learn more, if I want to check out the latest on the updates of your photos of the clam thievery, where should I go? What should I do, sir?
Yes, I should have a daily photo clam thievery update, but go to optionbit.com if you want my vol newsletter, and some vol education. It's a good deal. So come on in, and if you watch the show, we'll give it to you for what the heck, 20% discount for the year. I'm feeling good. So if you're a new subscriber, I would do that if you're going for the all-in price. So anyway, if you're interested, let me know. And all I can say is the MIAX guys, take your spikes methodology and put it on Bitcoin and get that Bitcoin future, vol future trading, ASAP.
Yeah, I mean, CME's not listing any options. SIBO's out of the game, so someone's got to list something fun. So let's go. Let's get some BitVol product listed as well. And let's just
get that bad boy.
How funny would that be? You can't trade a listed option, but you could trade a BitVol. That would be BitVol future. That would be great. that would be an interesting one. T3 is a place to go. MIAX options. Search for MIAX spikes if you want to get that sweet overview. Let's go to MIAXoptions.com/spikes as well. That's the place to go to get that sweet video, all the methodology, the current quotes, historical prices, all the stuff you need to know if you want to get in there trading up spikes. And you should. There's paper up there. There's interesting stuff going on. It's moving in a very interesting fashion these days. A lot of interesting stuff going on. Get on over there, MIAXoptions.com/spikes to learn more. And on behalf of myself and Mr. Smolin, who had to head to the airport, unfortunately, easy for me to say. I'm talking all week, Mr. Rockoff, so I'm kind of done. My tongue is falling out of my mouth here at the Southern Studio. It's about 110 degrees here in the shade, but that's a conversation for another day. On behalf of Mr. Smolin and indeed the Rock Lobster, who's having his clam stolen as we speak, and myself, I want to thank all of you out there for downloading, streaming, subscribing. Hopefully the live stream kept it up for you. If not, hit up Mixler, let them know you want to listen to the show live, and we'll see you next week, hopefully, fingers crossed, for more Volatility Views.
The preceding program was a production of the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, facebook.com/The Options Insider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.